Hey, how's it going, YouTube? This is Barlo. Still workshopping a nice intro to go along with the new name. But how's everybody doing? I hope the day's as beautiful where y'all are as it is where I'm at. Today, I was talking about it in the last video. I'd like to present to y'all my theory about the upcoming Fantastic Four first steps. There's been a few things that I found peculiar so far about the marketing with this movie. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to figure out something with this light back here. I know it's causing a glare. I apologize about that. But no, there were a few things about the marketing, the various trailers, uh, things we've seen and heard that are going to be part of the movie, and man, it's had my brain reeling for the last few months. So I thought, I got the One Piece one out last time. Whereas Laugh Tale, if you didn't see that one, go check it out. But today, I wanted to present to y'all my rationale behind my theory that at least one of the Fantastic Four will no longer be with us by the end of the movie. Now, that's not to say, because obviously anybody who's been keeping up with it has seen that Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, and my man Evan Moss Backrack, love his name, dude, shined in Punisher. So I am really looking forward to seeing him as the Thing. But we all saw the chair reveal. We all know that all four are going to be playing some part. But we're also dealing with a multiverse. So just because we have the same actor doesn't necessarily mean we're dealing with the same character that the actor is going to play in this movie. But I like to try to be a realist. Cup half full, cup half empty. I can't English today. I apologize. But this is very tinfoil hatty. You know, I'm like, here's my theory. Yeah, I know everybody's going to be there, but here's a workaround. Obviously, that's not going to be the end of it. Like I said, there were three things that I've seen in the marketing so far that have just really caught my attention, and I think I'd like to start with the point that has been the most noticeable to me. Uh, we've gotten a few trailers so far, all really good. Stretch animation of Mr. Fantastic looks really smooth so far, at least compared to what we saw of Luffy for the marketing of season one of One Piece. The stretching on Reed looks really good. It's promising. Now, I personally don't have an issue with how Sue's been rendered so far. Her powers are a little wonky, but like, how do you animate something that's invisible, right? We got to give the studio at least a modicum of a pass, because they're trying to show us something that is technically not visible. It's not something we're supposed to be able to see. So, I personally don't have any issues with Sue's power right now, how they've been showing it in the marketing. It looks pretty good, and, compared to the, what was it, 2004, somewhere in there, Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, that era. I like the animation for Sue's power a lot better in this one. But one thing that I've found interesting, or peculiar, if you will, about all three of the trailers that I've seen, four, been watching a lot of trailers. There's some really killer movies out, but in each of the trailers, right, there's this chant that's going along with the trailer. The Fantastic Four. Yeah, sorry, I do not have the voice of an angel. I don't know how to clip. I'm not trying to fucking have Marvel or Disney or whatever uh, taking down my videos or whatever. But so I'm not going to be using the actual chant. But you guys know what I'm getting at. In every one of the trailers, some of the trailers multiple times, this chant's come up, and I've kind of made a habit. Every time I watch a video about one of the trailers, I'll put in the comments like, hey, it's really weird, but not once has that chant finished saying the word four. It's always Fantastic Four, and then cuts off, goes to something else. I know this is real small. I still got my tinfoil hat on at this point, right? Like, Barlow, you got a theory and some really sus stuff. Like, but okay. I can't help shake the feeling that the fact we have not heard that hard R at the end of the word four is a hint. But beyond that, like I said, there were three things. So let's move on to point number two, and that's going to be Herbie. Uh, you know, Dude looks amazing. I'm really liking. I don't know if they did practical CG or a mix, because I know with Evan Moss Backrack they are doing a mix where some of it's CG, some of it's going to be dude actually wearing a costume. So I'm not sure as far as Herbie, whether that's all CG, half and half, all practical. However they did it, it's looking good so far. I really like Herbie. Uh, but the reason I bring Herbie up is the introduction. The first time we've seen Herbie was in what is it, 1980s, I believe. It's an old cartoon for the Fantastic Four, but notably, that cartoon didn't have Johnny in it. It was Reed, Sue, uh, Ben, and Herbie. They were the Fantastic Four. It was a pretty cool one. If you got any way of going and checking it out, I highly recommend it. But I'm real big on Marvel, so I will almost always recommend somebody go check out anything Marvel. Except the Iron Fist, which I really, really don't like. But I'm not going to get into that. I'll leave it at I'm not a fan. They could have cast better. They could have written better. But it is what it is. That's Netflix. That's old. We're done with that Iron Fist. But the fact that Johnny wasn't involved in that series just feels like another small hint, just another little piece of the puzzle. Because one thing that's been pretty consistent since 2008 with the release of the original Iron Man movie is Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios do their best to keep things under wrap while still leaving breadcrumbs here and there, like a little trail, if you will. And it's really, really cool for people like me who are theorists because it gives us something to keep our brain active, keeps us interested in the upcoming media. Uh, but it's always breadcrumbs, and it's never something that we get confirmation on until potentially years later. Which cool, as theorists, at least I like to believe we don't do this for the immediate praise. It's more like, oh yeah, I saw this coming 2 years ago, and I tried to tell y'all about it. Like, me trying to tell everybody in the various One Piece communities I'm a part of that Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard, and Roxy Zebek haven't been inherently written as evil guys. And I'm not going to get into that one right now. That's a whole other video I plan on doing. But I'm used to looking for breadcrumbs and trying to figure out, okay, is this breadcrumb leading me over here or is it leading me over there? I'm wrong a lot of the times, but I have fun doing it, and that's why I come here to pitch my ideas to you guys. But let's go ahead and move past all this, the rambling. We're going to go ahead and move on to point three, which is one of the ones, it's been revealed recently, and it's one of the points that I stand on the firmest. Uh, Now, obviously, to my knowledge, from what I remember, none of the stories that Marvel Studios has done thus far has been a direct translation of any story from the comic. They like to use the general idea of a comic story, right? And then add a little twist here, a little turn there, something to explain why, maybe this character who wasn't part of it in the comics is part of it now for our movie. Uh, they've had hits, they've had misses. I'm not going to go too much into that because I do largely agree with the community. Uh, I still want my money back for Thor: The Dark World. I'm not going to go off on that though. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. I didn't like how they did Christopher Eccleston in that movie. But point number three is the Thing himself, Eben Moss Backrack, Ben Grimm. You know, I'm gonna even go micro because I really, really like Dude's arc and Punisher season one. Admittedly, I did watch it recently. You know, a bunch of context. I read a bunch of stuff. I did not realize until about episode three that it was Evan Moss Backrack that was playing Micro. I was watching the intro credits one time. I'm wait, that name, it sounds familiar. I look it up like, oh yeah, he's playing the Thing. So I got all excited. I was really happy to see what he brought to the screen in that, and I loved it. If you haven't watched The Punisher yet, please go check it out. I know I'm probably the only one late to that party. I try not to watch things while they're hugely popular. That being said, I have watched most of the Marvel Movies opening weekend in the theaters. I'm hoping to do that with Fantastic Four because it is around my birthday. It'd be a really nice gift, but you know we'll see. I haven't. I think Endgame. No, I didn't even get to see Endgame in theaters. Infinity War was the last one I was able to go see in theaters opening weekend. I did watch a couple other ones in theaters before release, but I've kind of been getting lax on that, especially after some of what we've gotten since Infinity War and Endgame. It doesn't feel like it's worth my money a lot of times to go pay for a box office ticket. But why do I bring up Ben Grimm and go on this rant about Moss Backrack? I don't know what to call him yet. I really like his whole name. And it's something I've seen various other channels bring up. I've seen various articles talking about it. But the fact that Ben Grimm has that beard is probably the biggest red flag in my mind. Uh, it's happened once in the comics officially. You know, there's all kinds of spin offs, alternate universes, stuff like that. But Ben Grimm has rocked a beard in the comics. You know, big old ZZ Top bastard too. It was one of them big ones. But notably, he only had that big beard because of how Ben works, how his power worked. In the comics, at least, Reed came up with a serum that allowed Ben to return to being human for one day a year. It kind of sucks he couldn't come up with something that's like, oh yeah, you can just go back and forth. But I think you know, a big part of the Thing story is that facing the reality of looking like a monster but not being a monster. And you know, if you took that away, if Ben was able to go back and forth at will, it'd take a lot away from his story. So it was really nice that Reed came up with this. He's like, hey, you know, I can't do much else, but one day a year you can go back to being human. You can be with the woman you love, you know. But that one day a year is also the only time that his facial hair grows out. Why he chose to allow the beard to grow and kept shaving the head, I don't know. It was probably just a writing thing that I think that was a Jonathan Hickman run. It was probably just something that they came up with that were like, you know what, it's gonna look cool. We're gonna give the Thing a big old long beard to signify how long he's outlived his friends. And that's the point. The story in the comics where Ben had a beard, he had outlived everybody. Reed, Sue, Johnny, they were all long gone by that point. So I don't know, these three things, admittedly, like I said, they're all kind of breadcrumb details, but it's just enough to get at least myself thinking like, okay, is Marvel setting us up for Reed or Johnny to potentially not make it out of this story alive? And the reason I bring those two up is Not that Ben dying wouldn't be impactful. He's got a pretty big fan base. A lot of people like the thing. It's clobbering time. That's the stuff. It's like the classic snicked. It's just something we think about with that character. But I don't think Ben's passing would be as impactful, especially since Franklin isn't his kid. Now, admittedly, Marvel's been doing some darker stuff, but do we really believe that they would kill off a child's mother right after that child was born? I don't think so. Kevin Feige might try to be big braining things, but he's not Oda. He's not going to take the big swings at the darker plots that are really going to alienate people. Not because of lack of writing skill or anything like that. It's just One Piece has been established a lot longer. Their fan base has matured and grown up. Marvel Studios still largely tries to produce their movies for everybody 13 years of age and older. So I don't think Sue is even on the docket. Like, even if all three of the other ones go, right? Like, even if it's Sue and Franklin are the ones that end up leaving, I very, like, 0.1% maybe in my mind that Sue is the one that ends up leaving. So that leaves us with Johnny and Reed. With having the Council of Reeds kind of inevitable. You introduce a multiverse, you introduce the Fantastic Four, you introduce Victor Von Doom. The Council of Reeds comes with that. So we are going to have variants of Reed Richards. That much we know for sure. So is it really such a bad thing if Reed's the one that goes? Plus, that would be an impactful death, a father sacrificing everything for his child's future. Super poetic. Stories love using this trope because of how hard it hits the viewer or the reader in the feels. So that one feels, in my mind, the most promising. I don't really have a percentage on that. I'm not a statistician. But I do hold out in the back of my mind that it could be Johnny, if only because Herbie's a thing. They could just be trying to bring in as many of the cool characters from the old stuff as possible, tell a story with all of them, something meaningful, dramatic, and impactful that's going to move the story of Secret Wars and Doomsday forward. So, just because Herbie's there, though, there's this little part in the back of my mind that's like, it might not be Reed, it might be Johnny. But I also could be extremely wrong. It could end up coming out all four survive. They big brain a super win against Galactus, and all four take Franklin into the 616. I will say, I don't see, if that's the case, if all four of the Fantastic Four members do make it out with Franklin, I don't think their universe, what is it? They confirmed it recently. I want to say it's 10,001 is doomed. They're, even if not at the end of the Fantastic Four movie, even if they save everybody, the world's all right. It's copacetic, classic 90s reference there. That world's only superheroes are leaving. We have gotten confirmation that the Fantastic Four are going to be moving to the primary universe. So why would we move the only known group of heroes off of Earth in 10,001, universe 10,001, if it's meant to have a prosperous future? Now, this is all just my thoughts, Barlow out here rambling, just letting it all hang out in the wind, for better or for worse. I would love to hear how y'all think about it, though. How wrong do you think I am? Is there a chance you think I'm onto something? But most importantly, how excited are you for Fantastic Four First Steps, July 25th? I'll see y'all in the comics. Don't forget, I do have the Discord community set up. I'll make sure to drop a link to that in the bio. And for anybody on Tumblr or X, come check me out at Barlo-B-Theorizing. Love to see y'all on the other side.